All right, everybody. Welcome. We get a little mic check. Let me see if I'm going all right. Welcome, everybody, to Tauzy Presents Tricks of the Trade. I'm Tauzy. Tonight's broad subject will be about PvP. We'll be talking about player versus player. Make sure, please, to follow, sub, and share across all platforms. That includes Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram. Anything you do to help the community would be awesome. We are growing. We're doing well. We just want to keep rocking it out. What's going on, chat? Okay, so let's get into the questions. Okay. Questions for... Okay. I got a bunch of questions from a lot of you, so I appreciate that. Thank you all for the questions. How much prep is too much prep? Oh, okay, great. How much prep is too much prep? I hear this question a lot. I would say the short answer is there's no such thing as too much prep. And then the long answer is it's more about the focus of your prep as opposed to the quantity of your prep, I would say. So, like, for example, it's a group-based game. So what you really want to focus on is what do the players interact with. If you created something that the players will not interact with, then you've created it for yourself, which is great. That's not a bad thing. But if the vast majority of what you're creating is for yourself, then you're writing a book. And that's also great. But just be aware that the more you do just for yourself, the less impactful it becomes for your players. That's not to say you can't have, like, crazy backstory of your own world or whatever you're doing to support what the players are doing. You definitely want that. But when it becomes such that the focus jumps off what the players can activate, then that's too much prep. But if you want to go, like, super detailed in your prep, there's nothing wrong with that. I would say 9 out of 10 times what you're worrying about isn't something you should worry about, and when you're worrying about too much prep as a DM. I would also say, as a caveat, I don't have to worry about this one because I prep too little. I need to know, for me personally, I need to prep more most of the time. I know that for myself. But in terms of prepping too much, yeah, it really comes down to you can't unless you find yourself writing a book. But even then, even times when I feel like I've prepped even times when I think like, oh, I prepped a lot here, I feel like I could do a little bit more. So it's not really a problem for me. What do you do when the system gets in the way of something fun happening? Okay. When the system gets in the way of something fun happening, you just change it. The fundamental rule of D&D, the fundamental rule of most TTRPGs is Rule 0. If you don't know what Rule 0 is, that is DM fiat. That means the DM says what the DM says, and that's the way it goes. And 5e is very accommodating towards DM fiat. There's a lot of optional rules. There's a lot of optional systems. And a lot of TTRPGs work this way. You can just change what you want. If you're the game master or the dungeon master or the grand butler or the vizier, whatever they call the DM role, you probably have some sort of fiat to change whatever you want. So if it gets in the way of something fun, I mean, this is also like a rule of cool, and that has been talked to death on the internet. I would say, rule of cool should happen, but it can be abused, just like everything. So, yeah, just change it. You change it if it's not working. What is my worst experience as a DM? What is my worst experience as a DM? Holy crap. Okay. I mean, as a professional DM for these past 3 years, it doesn't even compare to the bad experience I had growing up as a DM. Like, the first 10 years of experience, just being like, as a late teenager in my 20s, those are the worst experiences. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't do any session zeros. And PvP, which we're going to get into later, was just completely allowed. So you had players like almost fist fighting each other at live tables. That's bad. That's about as bad as it gets. So when I see people angry at the tables I have right now, I don't worry at all. Because we've had a session 0, there are things that are understood, and I know that it's never going to get to that level. It's never going to get to a point where I'm like, this is so bad, everything needs to stop. Everything is manageable at this point because expectations are set, and then people know what they're getting into. When I first started out, that was not the case, and so you have horrible things happen, like people throwing stuff. Yeah. When taking the first steps to DMing, do you recommend one-shots or published campaigns? I recommend published one-shots. I recommend anything published, honestly, because if you can work with material that's already there, it saves you so much work. And honestly, when you're working with stuff that's already done, you're probably working with like a lot of the minutia that's already set in stone for you. You don't have to worry about all the little tiny bits, all the little details that actually take up so much time, so much prep time. So get a published campaign, read it, then reread it, and then run it. That's my recommendation. So published campaigns or published one-shots. One-shots if you don't have a lot of time with them, but if you're ready to jump into a campaign, there's nothing wrong with that. Jump into it. Just start doing. And I guess I could talk about like, creating something if you're a first-time DM. My recommendation is the inside-out approach as opposed to the outside-in approach. What that means is, unless you have that brain where you can write so much material, you don't want to start with the cosmos and then the planets, and then the planet they're on, and then the continent, and then the city-state that they're in, and then the town, because you'll have to write forever. You want to start with a village, and then explode from there. So start little. Start with barely anything in your world. Whatever it happens to be, barely any. There's a village, it's being attacked by hobgoblins. And then just literally create your own world around that. And a lot of published campaigns actually kind of have that very idea of like, this is just a little hamlet of a town, and it's being accosted by, these shadowy things from the forest next door. You just do that little bit, and then if you want to, explode from there. Don't start big and go small. Start small and go big. Yeah, that's my answer to that one. I'm going to post this question because I love it so much. And I know you did it as a joke, Jeremy. But I'm going to post this one. I'm going to post all the questions from that one. How many flagons can a hag's wagon drag if a wagon's flag snags on a craggy dragon? Great. Okay, I'm going to answer this one seriously. Because why would I? How many flagons can a hag's wagon drag if a wagon's flag snags on a craggy dragon? I think my answer is 0. Because a hag is typically medium-sized, unless it's an anise hag, but those are pretty rare. Then those are only large, which means their wagon is large or huge size, maybe. So we're talking about a pretty mid-sized wagon. And the wagon's flag snags on a craggy dragon. If it's a craggy dragon, if you're describing a dragon being craggy, then that's a big dragon. Because you're literally saying that its scales are jagged rocks. So that's a big old honkin' boy dragon. Which means if the wagon's flag snags on this craggy dragon, that wagon ain't going anywhere. Which means it ain't dragging any flagons. So my answer is 0. You are welcome. Yeah, that's my answer to that. Okay. I'll post all these questions with you guys as well. I think that works. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Do you let charm-dominated characters choose how they attack party members for the spice and keeping them engaged, or is that just too much spice? Okay, first up, charmed is very different than dominated in 5e. I think people don't, and I was fooled as well because in video games, they teach you that charm is very powerful and can screw over your party because like you lose a party member because they're dominated and they're charmed. It's the same thing essentially. But in 5e, charm just means the person or the creature charmed cannot attack the charmer. And that's it. So not much happening there. But it can be useful in combat. It's just not as crazy as dominated. Dominated means they're basically yours to command. I would say I would still give the party members, if they're dominated, freedom to use as strong of an attack as they can. With the caveat that they can't just attack weakly. They can't attack weakly. I would just say like you're dominated, use to the best of your ability, hurt the rest of your party. That's what I would say with dominated creatures. Yeah. Yep, that's what I would do there. Thoughts on failing forward as a concept. So this is kind of like a rules question on failing forward. Other TTRPGs are better at this than D&D 5e because it's a bit more esoteric as a concept. Essentially, what that means is if you fail, you still drive the narrative forward. And that should be built into a TTRPG's core rule set. And it's not really built into 5e. You can easily put it in there, though. You just make it part of the rule set. I try to do it all the time. I think Nat 1s tell the best stories sometimes. The last stream of Planescapers had 14 Nat 1s during the stream. So it's definitely a thing. And I also, with the Tauzy roll, the D100 roll, that also can promote more fails forward. I would just say, like, it doesn't need to be a hard rule. Just kind of keep it in there. Keep it in there that nasty things will happen, but maybe it puts, you literally put in another obstacle or another thing that helps because they failed. I think the worst things are when like it comes up with mysteries a lot. Like if you put a mystery in your game, the problem with failing a mystery is that you can't advance the plot because they can't go any further. So you need to put in more help even though they fail. So failing forward is definitely something that should be in the game. I'm just not certain it needs to be. It should be talked about. I don't think there needs to be a hard rule for it. I don't know, but I definitely think it should be in the game. Yes, that is where I got the Tauzy roll idea from, because I wanted to facilitate. Failing so hard you succeed and succeeding so hard you fail. I think I was listening to like Matt Colville once, and he talked about like if you kick open a door, if you get a nat 20 on kicking that door open, you know, maybe you kick it so hard now you have your foot stuck in the door. You kick it open, you succeed. But maybe you succeed so hard that now your foot's stuck in the door, you're restrained by the door, and it's cutting into your leg. And now there's orcs on the other side of the door looking at you. Or maybe you fail kicking that door open, but you hit it in such a way that the door collapses or collapses like on top of the orc, or it knocks out the orc on the other side. So he's knocked out, but you hurt your shoulder as you hit the door, so it's not open anymore, or it doesn't open. Yeah. That's what I wanted to put some crunchiness just in the 1s and 20s. I also did that because 1s and 20s were a little dull. A lot of people put like crit fail tables or crit success tables, but those have their own problems with them. The biggest problem with like a crit fail table is that eventually everyone just starts losing their weapons and tumbling over their own shoelaces, and it just becomes silly. And if you're playing a monk with fail tables, then no matter how much you wanted to make a Jet Li character, you instead made a Jackie Chan. And Jackie Chan's cool. It's great. That's a very different style than Jet Li. Okay. What can GMs learn from non-D&D games? What can GMs learn from non-D&D games that should add back into D&D? I mean, going back to like the narrative stuff of like Powered by the Apocalypse stuff, because I always look at those as like great narrative devices. There's some flashback, like the flashback stuff from Knives in the Dark, or Blaze in the Dark rather. Just things you can implement. You can absolutely grab things like that that can spurn the narrative on if you're having trouble that way, or if you enjoy more of like an improvisational style of DMing, you can just take stuff like that that just gives you more narrative obstacles. Because D&D doesn't have that, and I would argue I don't think D&D should have that. It's a bit much. The reason 5e is my favorite is because it's such a simple, it's such an elegant base system as opposed to say the other D&D systems that have come before. The other ones are very crunchy in relation to D&D 5e. Yes. Any questions from chat, by the way? I know I'm yapping a lot. Any questions? You guys good? Okay. What else? I promise I'll get to PvP. There's a lot of questions. Here's some PvP questions. I think Josh gave me some of these. In Grand Coliseum, in the PvP Coliseum bouts that we're doing, by the way, come play those. They're great. Our next one is on April 1st, April Fools. Oops, all bards. Every one of the characters has to be a level 7 bard. So that's a thing that's happening. I don't know how it's going to go. It might be a disaster. But last time we had, everyone has to be a level 4 monk, and then you can be some other stuff if you want. And I think it went great. It was awesome. And Grand Coliseum has a class stood out as the one to beat. Barbarian. Probably Barbarian. I think Barbarian is one of those, like, it's so good, and it's not a class that everyone talks about because it is a little one note. But it is so strong. I mean, of course it is. I think that's the one that's won the most, and we've been doing it for we've been doing PvP for, I don't know, 10 months now, which means once a month, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know, about a year. And I think Barbarian has gotten in the top 3 most of the time, at least. Let's see. In Grand Coliseum, what has been the most surprising build to win? Honestly, Rogue. Nikki played Rogue a couple times. And I thought, like, with the rules that I had set up, I'm like, I guess just Rogues and probably Bards just aren't going to be in the Coliseum. And I'm okay with that. I don't need them all to be balanced. But she made some Rogues that actually did very well. I think if you make a Rogue, if you make a Rogue and you find a way to get on-call advantage most of the time, she was using a like Rogue Warlock build where she can do Devil's Sight with Darkness, and it worked. So she can get her sneak attack most of the time. So that one actually did pretty well. In general, any thoughts? I'll post this one. In general, any thoughts on the pros and cons? Oh god, I need to switch a way to do this. Any thoughts on the pros and cons of players teaming up either in advance or during the combat? I don't know. I'm not a fan of it beforehand because I don't want any of that. I don't want any of the problems you'd have from like a battle royale, from like it becomes the necessary thing to do. It's the meta. You have to team up then. If it's talked about beforehand, like we set up teams, that's a possibility. We might do something like that where players team up, but then it's like a little bit cultivated so that everyone has a team. We might do that. It's a possibility. Wait, there was a question up here. Yeah, exactly. yeah, exactly. Um, in PvE, is PvP ever a good thing? We will talk about that in a bit. I'll answer that in pretty good detail, I think. In Planescapers, which PC would win a PvP? Ooh. I don't think an Arcane Trickster, because I think that's the way he's going, would do very well. Honestly, probably Grammaticus. It's just AC is just king. Grammaticus' mom. It's possible she's a barbarian. I would still put it at Grammaticus. When you got a high AC, you kind of dominate, and people aren't expecting it, or they don't have anything against it. It's tough. It's tough to beat. Okay, that's pretty much it for questions. That's a lot of questions. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any more questions, please put them on there. There's a paladin, right? There is a paladin. Yes. Yes, Kelly plays a paladin. Alcina. I don't know if I haven't seen a terrible amount of paladins in PvP. I don't know how well they would do. I don't know. I feel like they would do well. They have a lot of single target damage. Okay, PvP general rundown. Okay, we're doing April Fools. Oops, all bards on April 1st, and then we'll probably do something like, I don't know about May yet. Maybe Mage May. We'll see. For PvP, we have a promotion. I have a promotion going on. If you sub tier 3, PvPers, and we want to gain more tier 3 subs. So if you sub in April and May and beyond, if you wish, you get a free game of PvP in May, and maybe this promotion will keep going. Who knows? So that's a thing. In April and May, if you sub tier 3, you get a free game in May. Cool. All right. So, PvP, player versus player. Let's get to the main thrust of the content here. I feel like level 7 paladins don't have enough smites to spread across up to 5 other enemies, but maybe that's just me. Might be, but they might just like burn themselves out of resources. But I thought the same thing for monks, Trey, and monks kind of kept going for. I mean, they blasted out, and you guys kind of finished it in 8 rounds, I think. So, and you still had people were running out of key at like round 8. So, I think it's good for a minute of combat. I think paladins could still rock it out. They just wouldn't be smiting all the time. Okay, so PvP and PvE. If you PvP in PvE, it's usually an absolute disaster if left as it is. Trust me, I've seen the worst. I've seen all the whole spectrum of PvP in PvE. I know it's a tradition in the hobby, and a lot of people are pretty fierce traditionalists when it comes to that. They're like, you can't tell me that I can't hurt other people, or you can't, like, I'm here to play my character as it is. And I know it's been a cornerstone of the game, but I would say there's a lot of issues with that, and it comes from a time when there was a little bit more like people enjoying the pain of other people as opposed to the success of the group as a whole. I think fortunately the game has become the success of the group as a whole. So you have people fighting, players quitting, players working against each other. So many things that you don't want at a game. And it becomes the game. There's a rule in improv where it says, don't murder your scene partner. I think I'm going to D&D to play Skyrim. Yeah, exactly. Don't murder your scene partner, because then the scene is over. And as an improviser, if you're starting out, you're like, well, it certainly can't be over, right? You can keep going. No, man, it's fucking over. Your scene's done. You just killed somebody. It's over. And it's the same thing in D&D. If you kill somebody, if you bring up a knife versus another player in a PvE game, that's the game. That's it right there, man. There's nothing I could do as a DM to create anything more interesting than the bloody knife fight that's about to happen between 2 players. So that's why I created a PvP system. I was like, players are interested in this, but I want to have a safe place where you wouldn't scream at each other, where you can get this out if you wanted to play it. Because I know battle royales are popular, and they should be popular. They're a lot of fun. But in a game where the group is trying to achieve something together, it is counterproductive. Player permission is key. So it really is a session 0 thing. Yeah. Player permission is key. You want to ask the players before anything happens. So this goes on session 0. You want to set the ground rules. I set the ground rules. I say like no PvP unless you give permission. And this can get into some minutia. It's not just like don't hit each other. It really is like don't push each other. Don't cast haste without getting permission, I would say, because haste, if you lose concentration as a caster, you screw over your party member. If you do anything that's gonna have a negative adverse effect, just get some quick player permission. That's it. It's not that big a deal. So even the small things will build up. Like if small aggressions will like build up in a player system if you don't rein it in. PvP. There are some things like PvP larceny. If you start out with like beginners who are playing rogues, a lot of times they're like, I steal from the other players. That's PvP, man. I know you're not stabbing them, but you're taking their things, and that can suck just as much as getting stabbed in a fantasy game. Item hogging, you don't want to do that. That's also kind of PvP. Spotlight stealing and ability hoarding. Those are somewhat PvP. It's all like a spectrum, right? It's not. Some things are worse than others, but like, it's all give and take. And if you're there just to grab, if you're there to grab in the game, as opposed to like share and build up, literally think of yourself as like, I'm here to put up a support column. If you think of it that way, the game is a lot easier. It doesn't mean you have to be Mr. Magoo. It doesn't mean everyone has to be like super duper Stepford wife smiles all the time. It just means you just need to think about the group as a whole. That's it. There should always be a session 0. Always a session 0. There are some exceptions to PvP, including accidental or random PvP. So, I love wild magic and wild things that happen that way, which is why I absolutely allow those type of things. So those include, what's the best advice for helping the players have fun with maybe playing through that actual betrayal? Oh, gotcha. If it's forced on you. So this is what I'm talking about. Yeah. So if there's like forced betrayal, like you are cursed by something or something in-game, usually spawned on by the DM, like some obstacle is forcing you to screw over your other players, just recognize that that's part of the game. And so, sometimes PvP is, I'll literally say as a DM, like, PvP is on now. It's okay. Like, this is, narratively, we've earned this, as opposed to just murdering each other from the get-go. Like, this is a part of the story, so this is an okay thing to happen. So yeah, during those moments, I think it's okay. It just needs to be earned. But there's also some random things that'll happen, like wild magic, D100 rolls, unhappy accidents in the game. Those are fine. That's a part of taking a sword and a shield into a smoking dragon hole with some buddies. It's not all going to be, it's not all going to be cheesecake, guys. Some people are going to get hurt, and you might accidentally hurt each other. Yeah. And I love randomness. I love it. So it's just going to happen. It's part of it. What else? Okay, so PvP and the Grand Coliseum PvP. This is totally different. This is where obviously it shines because we've talked about this. Once a month, although the timing might change, players are invited to kill indiscriminately. Even here, though, the rules need to be laid out effectively and as concisely as possible. Yes. You're here to hurt each other, But oh wait. Yeah. Um, yeah. So what I've really figured out with the Grand Coliseum PvP is that it needs to be focused. Um, it needs to be focused so that it's not. Oh man, it's tough to. We're not focused on killing one player at a time, but I honestly, a lot of it has been a huge experiment as to see what happens in the game, and for the most part, for like the grand majority of it, I'm very very happy with what has happened with it, with what goes on. There are a couple key changes that I was worried that like creating this PvP scenario that it wouldn't work, that 5e was not going to support PvP, and there are some things that there are some rough edges to it, right? So I've made some key changes because I was worried that players would like find a meta, and then that meta would just overtake everything. So I did some things that I think undercut that meta right away. A couple key changes were you can't affect the audience. There's a 20-foot ceiling to the dome to stop people just like flying out of there. Uh, there's tracing on invisible players. No D100 rolls to affect randomness versus players. Everyone knows here that there's a D100 rolls if you roll a nat 1 or a nat 20. But that can't happen in PvP because a lot of that is just DM fiat. That's just like me screwing with you or helping you depending on the scenario, and I can't really do that because it might be favoritism. So that's why I can't do that there. And then dodging as an action hurts the PC. A lot of these rules here that I put in are there to stop people from getting overly defensive as a meta. So because the idea is you need to survive, so a lot of players would say, well, if the idea is to survive, I shouldn't be fighting at all. But the whole point of PvP Coliseum is to get you in there and start bloodletting, which is why I have roars. If you hurt people, hurt characters, or you kill them, or slay monsters that they've summoned. Limiting magic items that are somewhat balanced with each other. Yeah, I don't want to have. That's been a little bit tricky, but I think I've reached a point where I'm happy with the magic items that are offered. Maybe the spell mantle might be a little strong. I don't know. We'll see. I'm actually kind of enjoying that because I think casters, now that I'm allowing bonus actions plus action casting, I think I'm even more okay with the spell mantle because now casters have that extra edge. I think. Yeah. Theme is there every time, and I'm always up to like hear if people have any ideas for extra themes. Any other things you guys want to see inside the game. Sorry about that. I think we've done, like when I first started out, I just wanted to try like basic Coliseum with like basic Coliseum traps and animals. But now I'm just exploding that everywhere, and I want to do like what the players want to do. I'm playing with that a lot. So we're doing just certain classes, or we're going to do just certain. We did a lot of like kind of planescaping ideas where we started out with like the Underdark, and then it was the plane of fire, and then the plane of the Frostfell. So we're just going to other places and putting that in the Coliseum. But I also want to do what the players want to do. I also kind of want to do another day of it, but I'm going to need more players who want to actively involve themselves in it. Is there a build you're surprised no one has tried yet in the Grand Coliseum? I guess Paladin, because we already talked about that. There hasn't been a lot of Paladins. I want to see it happen. Paladins are so strong. They're S-tier classes. I guess they don't have a lot of mobility, so players think that they're just they can't get to the other characters. I don't know. We'll force it on people. That's what we'll do. We'll have a Paladin. We'll just have a Paladin match. People missing each other's heavy armor. That's what we're going to do. I think Paladin's the answer to that. I don't think... There's a lot of Warlocks. There's a lot of Warlock multi-classing dipping, which is understandable. Steve was a Paladin a few times. He was. You're right. What else we got? We got Artificer. Seen Artificer a couple times. Rogues are good. I've seen a couple sorcerers. Rangers, I've seen Rangers. You guys have been playing everything. I don't know. I'd say Paladins. I guess I haven't seen the most of those. We saw Wizard once. Yeah. Help me out. What are the other ones? Everybody start posting classes that I haven't set. What haven't I said? Second here. No bards yet. Well, we're going to do that. We're going to see that. It's going to get nasty. Sing-songy friends hurting each other. Okay. Environmental damage or obstacles. Let me talk about that. Sometimes I want to make it so that it's a heavy hand, and sometimes I want to make it so that it's not a heavy hand. The reason for that is mainly so that I keep you on your toes. If you know exactly what's going to come, it becomes a little bit more monotonous, a little bit boring. But if you don't know what I'm going to hit you with, or help you with, you're always gonna have it. It'll just be more fun, and more surprises will be around the corner. So that's what I'm all about. And I've learned that I've learned to have like a gentler hand that builds over the course of the game. I don't want to come crushing in, but usually towards the end of the game, it feels like it needs to wrap up. If we can have another bout during the night, I want to try and do that. And I think last time when we did a half hit point bout, that worked out pretty well. There's something you can change on the fly, like if you see what you think is going to happen in the next 3 rounds, you step on the chaos a little bit more. I have a lot of stuff built in at this point. Is that something you can change on the fly? Like, you step on the chaos a little bit more. I have some of those things already built into the game. I kind of have a feel for how it's going to go, and so it just gets worse and worse. The danger of the bout should get worse and worse, but again, not all the time. Sometimes I'll just be like, it's just gonna be you guys. That's it. Yeah, pretty much. And NPCs in PvP, that's another thing that happens a lot. Sometimes I'll just put an NPC in there, usually it's a heavy duty, like, cleaner upper NPC, like a big treant or a giant to come in and just mop up, and it'll just mop up whoever's left. So I think it's going well. I want to keep going with them. I do want to do possibly another one a month, do 2 PvPs, but I am going to need I do want to get like a separate set of players, if possible. So if anyone is interested, let me know. They're only $15. It's my cheapest game. You come in, you play for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and if you win or you get second place, you get a PvP token of inspiration. What that means is that in my PvE games, you can use that to help out another player. The reason I do it that way is because I don't want pay-to-win systems where you do some content and then it helps your character help yourself in other pieces of content. Because that feels like you're just paying to win games as opposed to playing to play them. But if you use it to help other people, it facilitates a better group gameplay. And I'm always about that. So I'm happy with that. And if we do a second bout, I think I liked how I did it last time, that only the first person gets it. So it really is a sudden death. A separate set of players. Yeah, it really did. I think I want to do a separate set of players. I think so. Maybe we'll have some. I think this will get more popular as we go, and so I'm going to need to make it a separate set of players. Yeah, I think I want to do that. I don't want to break hearts and say like you can't play this day anymore. So I might just have to do it from the get go and say like this has to be a different set of players when I get it. when it starts to make. But I also think each one can have up to 8 players, maybe even 10. 10 is rough, but I think we could do 10. Probably have to pick another night then, not like Mondays. That's a good idea. Yeah. We'll pick another night. I don't know when it's going to be. I'll ask around, see what people can do. It might be like a Friday night thing. Maybe it's a Friday night cage match. Maybe it's a Friday night team battle. Maybe it's a different type of thing. It's fun to think of stuff on stream. Yeah, maybe it's a team battle on a different night, and we call it something else. So we have the Grand Coliseum, and then we have something else on a different night. That'd be really cool. That's a really great idea. The Jets and the Sharks. If there's no more questions, I think that'll be it. We'll just stop it right there. I'm happy with that. I just wanted to address you guys, talk to the community, say what's up, answer your questions, and check in with everybody. Please, hey, what's up, buddy? Oh, gotcha. Okay, last but not least, please share, please follow, please sub if you can, and then, yeah, we'll see you the next time we play. Next time we stream will be this Tuesday, will be episode 7 of Planescapers. That'll be at 9 when they continue their adventure into the Torrent of Karanos. Awesome. All right, everybody. Peace out. Thanks for joining. Thanks for chatting. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys later. Peace. Oh yeah, we got a raid going, so you guys are going to the Tavern Tapes in 5 seconds. Bye, everybody.